Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to and watching the award-winning podcast, The Whole. You happy now, bitch?
Welcome to The Whole. I am Rob Sprans.
Hello.
So we are joined by Wendell Pierce. Wendell is, I have to tell you this, Wendell, you are one of the few actors, there's a few, but you're one of the few that when you are on a show or I see you on it, I go, yes.
Oh.
and you know,
Well, thank you.
and admittedly, I might yell bunk as well from time to time, but
I accept that.
but across the board, you've been in so many wonderful things, which we'll get to across the board. But I always do like to talk about what's upcoming first, because I think that you playing Willie Loman in the upcoming Death of a Salesman play on Broadway is something that, as New Yorkers, first of all, will be there. And secondly, I'm very, very excited. So I know that you did this in London first.
Yes.
How did it come about, and what makes this one's different from all of the other iterations? Because everybody puts their own spin on it, and I've heard nothing but rave reviews about it.
I was approached by the Young Vic Theater and Miranda Cromwell, the director, and Marianne Elliott, who was directing also and producing, about playing the role. That they were thinking of doing it. They were going to do it in London, and would it be something I was interested in doing? And that just floored me. One, because they thought of me doing the role, to be under consideration to play Willie Loman for any actor, especially an American actor, because I consider this like the American Lear or the American Hamlet. To play this iconic role is a humbling experience and an honor to be offered the role. As an African American, unexpected, because I know it had been done before with an African American family, but to do a large commercial production like this that was going to be in London, in the Fringe, I it was an honor. And it was not only an honor, but I knew it would be important, historic. In the 19th century, Ira Aldridge had to leave America as a black actor to find his place. Paul Robeson, his greatest triumphs actually came in the 20th century when he went to London. And then ultimately it became that for me in the 21st century. It was a production in London that gave me the opportunity of a lifetime and in a career. And to indulge myself and immerse myself in the role, it was the greatest challenge that I ever had as an actor. And also the greatest connection between psychology and acting that I had ever experienced, because that's the closest thing to acting. Psychology, creating a world so strong that it induces behavior. We are students of human behavior. And this was the greatest research and study project for me as an actor, to challenge myself as an artist, and some of the best writing in the 20th century. One of the greatest plays of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Easily the top 5, top 3. And so that's how I came to do the role in London. And I was just very, very pleased with the way it turned out.
Now, before we started, Lori had mentioned to me that you went to Juilliard. So
Yes.
yeah, so you have experience on the stage as well. This is not even remotely your first time. But what are the biggest differences besides the obvious live component and, whatever is out there is out there? What's the difference in your mindset to do one versus the other?
I I tried to do a play, television and film, each year, one of each,
Hmm.
to because it challenges a different acting muscle for you at times.
Hmm.
And in the theater, it is. I, I tell people that the best image is if theater was a floodlight, this immense, bright, hot, full white light, and it's condensed the same amount of light into a laser.
Hmm.
That's film.
Okay.
That's the best description of it. You don't do less,
Hmm.
you do more focused, and you bring it in. I heard a great description by Joe Montana. He says, when I finish filming at the end of the day, I'm spent because I'm just giving and giving and giving on take after take and scene after scene. In theater, no matter how long the play, at the end of the night, I'm filled with energy
Hmm.
because the give and take between the audience in a live moment is such a cathartic, truthful, honest moment that it is so energizing and it fills you up and it's so truthful. At the end of the evening, no matter how difficult it's been, you are energized um, with the experience, a shared experience that um, was only there for that brief moment and for those numbers of people that were there, and how uniquely special that is. And so, while the process is different, the reward is the same, and the common denominator is good writing.
Yeah.
Common denominator is good writing that induces the behavior that creates the world for you, that allows you to create the world so strong that it induces the behavior for you. And when you're in the pocket, when you when you are really connecting, you're just riding the wave of all the work that you've done before. In theater, I always say if you've done the work, it's like dominoes. You hit that first domino and it falls and it hits the next moment and the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. And it takes you all the way till the end of the evening. You ride that wave. In film, you have the luxury of messing up,
Hmm.
but in that in that time, you get to create a real moment and go back, and when you exhaust yourself until you absolutely find it. So the process of discovery, rehearsing, cultivating, forming it, and then executing it to perfection all happens in the process, in that one moment of filming, in that one day of filming, where that process is elongated in theater, where your discovery, your research happens over a course of weeks, and then the execution happens once you start performing it, and then you really start to execute it and connect when that other scene partner joins you, not the one on stage, but the audience. It
Hmm.
literally changes the air between you, between the the stage and the audience. You feel the air change.
Yeah.
And so while that process is over a couple of weeks, in filming it's over a couple of hours.
Yeah, and I got to think too. You have the instant gratification. So you may be part of two projects that are both a success. One on stage, one as a film or a television show, either one.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get that gratification on film or TV sometimes until years later. So
Yeah.
you'll have done it, and then you won't know how people have received it for a long time until it's
Yeah.
until it's out
Year
there.
later. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm sure you get people coming up to you, giving you quotes from Wire or whatever it may be, and then
You're right.
that you probably don't even remember saying at this
Yeah.
point.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting, because sometimes it goes the other way where you feel as though, oh man, I nailed it, right? Oh, this is going to be
Uh-huh.
great when this film comes out next year. Oh, it's going to be nailed. It's going to be perfect. And then it comes out and you realize, oh my goodness, that's bad. I missed it. I really missed that. Um,
Yeah.
with the instant gratification in the theater, there's nothing like it. And to do a play in London, which I had never done, it was my London debut, and to move into the West End with this great American play was just illuminating. It was so uplifting. And now to know, after the pandemic and being shut down in the world for 2.5 years, we're going to be able to come back and reignite that and take this great American play and then do it on Broadway. And that is going to be historic, literally historic. I joined a fraternity of actors from Lee J. Cobbs to Dustin Hoffman to Brian Dennehy
Yep.
to Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then myself. It's an honor and a rarity um, that I know will be a high watermark in my career.
Yeah, and it's very well deserved, Wendell. And I know sometimes it's not easy for you to kind of look back and reflect because you're always moving forward. You know working on another thing. You're working on a process. Does the gap pose an issue for you from doing it in London, where you've kind of got into this rhythm and you're in that mindset and you're in that headspace,
Mm-hmm.
and now you go on to other projects. Now all of a sudden you have to rejoin that headspace and you have to almost not from
Absolutely.
scratch, but you have to go there again.
It is an acute and absolute frightening proposition and challenge
Yeah.
that I welcome. It will point out where the work was solid, truthful, authentic, because it will reverberate and come back and maybe even take you further. And those places where the work was not fully realized, it's not there, uh, you realize there's still work to do, but you got a good start on it. There's no guarantee. And that's a part of the excitement, to try to recapture lightning in a bottle 3 years after the fact. Uh, I am closer to the man now because I
Mm-hmm.
start in a particular way. I have already started, I actually stopped working. I am on a daily mission with the play, and it's
Mm-hmm.
already taken its toll on me. So I'd look a little haggard because I was up late last night and I roll over and grab the script the first thing in the morning, and I read it and read it and read it and think I am. This is one of those plays that you really live it. I never subscribed to that idea that actors would always say, "Oh, I have to really be careful and take myself away from it," and because I get so involved. I always thought, "Oh, that's really good PR."
You're so
This is
full
not
of it,
day.
right? Right.
This, on the other hand, is different. It's a level of self-reflection um, at a time of your life where you wonder if your best days are behind you,
Mm-hmm.
where you reflect on your failures, what your expectations were, and how far you are away from them, um, the brevity of life, uh, and those are real considerations
Yeah,
for someone in their 60s, And so it's you know, you know, it's the ultimate statement of denial is when we say, "Oh, I'm a middle-aged man."
I know. As a
No,
middle-aged man, I agree with you.
no, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There
yeah.
are fewer days ahead of us, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
more days behind us, and we do ourselves a disservice by saying we're middle aged. We were middle aged at 30,
Yeah.
at 35. Yeah, that's the middle of the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hope to
Yep.
get 30, 35 more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, when you reach 60, it's a different thing, and
Yep.
you have to and so. But Arthur Miller said it the best. Uh, the theater, there's a certain immortality to theater that an actor takes to their dying day. That on some certain afternoon, you cast the shadow of a person who was not yourself in this theater, and gave voice to someone who usually didn't have a voice, and sang an unsung heart song that the ordinary man feels but never utters. And you take that with you to your dying day. And that's where we're dealing with. That's what you're dealing with as I prepare for Death of a Salesman.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And, to talk about that, and to reflect on things, are you the type of person that can go back and, reflect on The Wire and what your contribution was, and Treme, and even Jack Ryan, which we'll talk about in a second. And, these, you've also been in these very important films, Selma and Malcolm X, and it's impressive that you're, and as an actor, if you're on top of your game, this is what you can do. But you're able to go from these different things. I mean, even from Jack Ryan and Treme are just two completely different types
Yeah.
of characters and universes. So do you go back and reflect on things and be like, you know what, I'm so proud that I did this? Or are you not that type of person?
Oh, yeah. I do that. I do that a lot. I always try to. I've always thought about creating a body of work, right? Challenging myself as an artist, as an actor, um, and creating a body of work that is of some importance because it has some impact. Treme will always be this document, this love letter to the city of New Orleans and to culture itself, of how we survived this great man-made disaster. And it was culture that brought us back on our feet. And it's a little cultural document that years from now, some kid in New Orleans will say, well, Mr. Pierce, what did you do in New Orleans' darkest hour? And I can say, hey, I want you to watch this show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Wire was the canary in the mine. I
Yeah.
mean, we are 20 years deep from The Wire, and it's as if we did it yesterday,
Yep.
warning the people about the dysfunction that can destroy our communities, destroy our governments, destroy our ideas and values. Um, I was just saying, I had a line at the beginning of the third season: the bigger the lie, the more they believe.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You would think I was saying that on January 7th of last year,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
of 2020. Oh no, 21. And and the conditions that we're in now, the political discourse that this country's in. So I try to select projects that will have some impact and then some import. You're very kind because you have gone through my body of work and picked some really wonderful choices I've made. I have made some stinkers.
Well, for what it's worth, I've gone through them live with you, Wendell.
Yes,
It's not like beforehand they go, let's see what he's in. Like we
right.
don't we ask people that we respect their work because it's easy for me to talk to someone like you because I'm a fan of what you've done. So
Thank you.
that's easy. So, when you just to stay on Treme for a second, and just the David Simon way that he looks at things, and all of his
Hmm.
shows, first of all, the city is its own character just as much as the characters are. and
Absolutely.
and he has the knack of, and taking his time doing it, but he has the knack of showing every facet of why something has happened. So, like, in The Wire, he did it with seasons where, one season was specifically the drug running, and one season was the politics, and you build that story over time. He's doing it again, and I don't know if you've seen We Own the
Yeah,
City
yeah,
just yet.
yeah.
It's
We own
just
the city. Yes, it's brilliant. And, David Simon. We're talking about David Simon, who created The Wire, created Treme, which was the show after The Wire that I did with him in New Orleans. If The Wire was a visual novel, which is what he always described it as to us, saying, be patient, I'm going to develop place and character and story as if it was a novel. So you're not in every chapter. So don't freak out if you're not in a particular chapter.
mm,
With Treme, it was a poem.
Right. Yeah.
How do you capture culture? That intersection of life and how people deal with life is culture. How we deal with love and death and hate and fear and joy, and in a poetic way. That New Orleans is such a great city to investigate that with, and and people wanted it to be like The Wire, and I was like,
No.
it's not The Wire. The Wire is a novel. This is a poem. David has a great ability to come in to a place that is not of his making, that he is at many times a fish out of water. And he has the great ability to observe and define and replicate that world with an authenticity that even the people within that world miss. We would always say that in New Orleans when we were shooting The Wire. I mean, Treme. Like, David turned me on to something. I've been living in New Orleans my whole life. I didn't realize that. I didn't
Wow.
see that. And there's a great story, but I think it's the cinematographer of Days of Heaven or Heaven's Gate that opens with the wheat fields of the Midwest. It's just sweeping, panning shots, Days of Heaven, and wheat fields and wheat fields. I think it's Vilmos Zsigmond. I hope I'm right. But he said, when I was growing up in Europe, when I thought of America, I'm behind the Iron Curtain. All I could think about was they just have an abundance of food, and there's just an endless sea of wheat and bread that is made from it. They'll never go hungry. That was America to him. And so when he opens Days of Heaven, those sweeping shots, everyone said, what made you think of that? How could you come up with that? It's so brilliant. It's so American, right? He said, that's what America was to me. And that's what David does. He comes into a world and he gives the humanity, he points out the humanity that exists there that you may not see. Whether it's a corner boy in Baltimore who on a regular day you would pass by and not give any sort of thought to as a whole human being going through a multitude of complexities, or someone playing just a simple melody on the streets of New Orleans, knowing that there's so much life behind that improvisation, that they're speaking and expressing themselves because they need to express it. And that's informing the music that we hear. That from scraps, you put together a meal, a cuisine that is now renowned around the world. From scraps off the table, we built up a stew that now people fly to New Orleans to taste the gumbo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's really just scraps from the table. And so, and that shows you the humanity in that. And David has the ability to point that out.
Yeah, and you know you're a big jazz fan. For those of you who don't follow Wendell on Twitter, you should go to Wendell Pierce. Follow him on Twitter because he shares a lot of when you went to Jazz Fest and even to Budapest at one point to see.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he went to see Branford
I went to see
Marsalis.
Branford
Bradford,
Marsalis,
yeah.
and you could always catch me. They're doing a lot of filming in Budapest. So there was one particular night, Lawrence Fishburne, John Krasinski, Ethan Hawke, I think came, and they were like, Wendell, where do you hang out? Where do you run off to? I was like, man, come on, Budapest Jazz Club. I took them all one night to the Budapest Jazz Club, and the band, the late night band there, I was always calling for this one of my favorite songs, which is Joy Spring. And so we're sitting around having a drink and all of a sudden, I heard them start the head of the song, right, the melody. And I've been asking these cats for a long time through, my broken Hungarian and their broken English, Joy Spring, do Joy Spring. And they didn't know it. And so this particular night, they were trying it. And I jumped up and I said, let me start you off. And man, Lawrence and John, everybody's like, "What the hell? This is what you do." I'm like, "Yeah, man. This music goes around the world." And that's I love jazz because of that. It is the epitome of American music. Freedom within form. That we are a nation of laws, but we celebrate individuality, and that's literally a jazz song. You
Yeah.
have to honor the chords, but improvise, man, improvise.
So, did you? I know that you had to take some trombone lessons for Treme, just so it looked like you knew what was going on. Did
Yeah.
you did you stick with it and try to keep learning it? As somebody who loves it so much, you would think that maybe you'd want to stay with it. Time, I'm sure,
I,
gets in the way, but
I do have my horn.
mm.
Uh, I need to practice more. I play like a fifth grader, but
It's okay.
I remember all of my solos, or actually my intro
Mm.
solo. Um, uh, that was the first solo, first season, Treme, season
Mm.
one. And whenever I'm out, I was at Jazz Fest. Cats are always, "Man, did you bring your horn? Come on up. You could do it. You could." And so, what I need to do is practice more, and then I would be able to do it, especially on the street, second lines and stuff. Man, you get warmed up, and yeah, I think I could. I can hang doing, a little brass line, you
Yeah,
know.
if you got something,
So yes.
though I've always the few times like I play guitar and I'm one of those I
Oh,
play. I'm not a musician, but I play
yeah.
music. That's what.
I
Yeah,
see the guitars behind
yeah,
you. I see.
yeah. So, but anytime I've ever played with a jazz musician, it's just like I even speak the language. Like they are like at a level I will never comprehend. And like I'll be like,
Oh,
no, just do it like this. And the guy's like, blue, 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 blue. I'm like,
right.
like, bro, I'm
They're calling out. They're calling out keys and stuff, and they say,
yeah,
"Yeah."
yeah. It's like, no, I just know this. That's all I can do. But how much time do we have with you, Wendell? I don't want to
No, I have
have
time.
you.
I
All
have
right,
time.
cool. So, I mean, obviously, I want to talk a little bit about Jack Ryan and The Wire. Let's
Hmm.
talk about Jack Ryan. Season 3 coming up soon. I know it's sometime this year.
Yes.
Very excited about that. And it's funny as I talk to you, I learn more and more how different you are than some of these characters, and how it's how what's it like doing such a, I mean, that's a big budget action. It might as well just
Yeah.
be a big budget film for 10 hours. I mean, it's
It is
incredible.
a 8 hour film,
Yeah.
and they approach it as that. I just look at it as one large film, uh, and it's like one of those films they used to do back in the day with an international cast, shot on international locations around the world. We bring to you Ben Hur. Uh, it is a massive project. It has taken us around the world literally, and that's the thing that I will always remember it for. I have been just in this past year and a half. We were based in Budapest, and we shot in Vienna and Prague and Athens,
Yeah.
Slovakia, Washington D.C. actually, um, and then ultimately the Canary Islands. And it is so amazing to go around the world when you're working and you see what we have in common, and what we don't.
Mhm.
I wish it for everyone, because when you when you experience other people's culture, um, you appreciate your own, and you appreciate how you live and love and move forward, and appreciate and what inspires you, and what how how there's an ugly side of human nature you have to always be vigilant against.
Mm-hmm.
As we sat in this beautiful, charming city of Budapest, only an hour and a half away from where we were was the war in these
Yeah.
last 3 months, and it was it was awful to see and know that it wasn't in some foreign land on the other side of the world. Uh, we had crew members who were worried about their families in Ukraine. We had
Yeah.
crew members who were worried about their families in Moscow, and it brings it home. So you see the ugly side of human nature, and you also see the beautiful side of human nature, which is I will always cherish the different actors that I've worked with around the world. I've worked with actors from Turkey and Morocco and Germany and Ukraine and Budapest and Hungary and in Montreal, Americans and
Yeah.
from the UK and London and all. And it's so funny because all actors are the same. How do I look? Is that my line? And it was great. You would see this actor get very nervous about this 2 words of English that they had to say. They're like, man, I'm Russian. I don't speak the language, and I thought
Yeah.
about my Russian lines. And I'm going drilling it, and I hear him going, right this way, right this way, Dr. Ryan.
Yeah, it's the
You
same thing.
you realize that the commonality of actors trying to bring truth to their work, and Jack Ryan is just massive. But there too, I learned something from the research, just like I learned when I was preparing for The Wire. I learned why African American men and women became police officers on The Wires because the crime that they wanted to fight did not reflect the neighborhoods that they lived in. It was
Yeah.
only 1%. The 99% of the people were just good, hardworking, uh, God fearing people, who just wanted who were disproportionately affected by crime. And I, quite bluntly, as I prepared for Jack Ryan, asked uh, retired African American CIA officers, how do you deal with being a black officer at the CIA?
Yeah.
Knowing the history of this agency, and um, we know it's all public knowledge. The CIA was chasing Malcolm X when he went on his Hajj,
Mm-hmm.
um, and he said, "Well, Wendell, you and I both would fight racism, and I just choose to fight racism inside the CIA than outside of it. I
Yeah.
think I would have more resources and have more of an impact. That was the thing that allowed me to do it."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Yeah, that's a good point." He says, "Now you consider yourself an American, right?" And I was like, "Yes." And he said, "Well, how do you consider yourself an American with the history this country has in our community?" Right? It's the same way that you consider yourself an American and that you think of a more perfect union, and that's what you're fighting for. That's the thing that empowers you because you believe in the values and you know that we're not there yet. And that's what allows, and that gave me everything I needed to know about James Greer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything,
Yep.
right? The chip on his shoulder and what that is about.
Well, and
It's
sorry
about
about
believing in the value.
Go ahead, Lori.
my technical issues, but also your story of your father.
Say it again.
Sorry. Also the story of your father and how he, can you? So sorry. He is a war hero
Yeah. So yeah, my
who was
dad
not getting
fought
his
in World War.
awards due to
Yeah, he
racism.
fought in World War II, and my mother came to me a couple of years ago before she passed, and she said, your father got some awards uh, that he never did get when he fought in World War II. When he came back, he said there was a officer, a female officer, who didn't believe him because his records were behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Yeah, right, you." He said, "No, I think my unit got some commendations." And she said, "Yeah, right." And so he was upset. He said, forget about it. And my mother came to me and said, we got a letter from the Army. And they said that your father did win these medals and that he should get them. And I said, all right, it's about
Nice.
time. Good.
Yeah.
I said, bring me the letter and then, I'll work on getting it. She said, good. That's what I want you to do. Get these medals for your father. And my mother brings me a letter, yellow piece of paper from January 1945.
Wow.
It's saying, and I said, wait a minute. I thought you got this letter like the other day. She was like, no, this is your father. I was like, wow.
Wow.
And my father, and then I called the World War II Museum here in New Orleans, and they said, not only are we going to get your father's medals, but on Veterans Day in 2010, they had a ceremony in the hall of the World War II Museum on Veterans Day. And we pinned my father with 7 medals that his unit had received in Saipan. And so it was great. And that just shows you, it was proof positive of what the Wire is about, what really good art is about. It's like the dysfunction and the things that were incorrect with America. Because we're fallible and we're human. And then the things that are wonderful about our humanity and our American values and all. We're really emblematic in that one moment. There's, like a Dickens line, the worst of times and the best of times. And once we realize that, that's what really good art is about. Showing that, holding, as it were, a mirror up to nature so they see that. And so that's the great thing that I love about Jack Ryan. That of course there's fantasy to it. There's an improbability to the amount of violence and how Jack Ryan saves the day.
Right.
We all save the day.
You get to kick some butt too. Let's not say you're not an
Yeah.
ass. You kick some ass too, Wendell. Come on.
Yeah. So it's like, and there's some improbability. People have called us on it or whatever. I said, well, I hope you have that ability to discern the improbable from the likely.
Exactly.
And but at the same time, I really enjoy the fact that, and I've spoken to my advisor and said, did you like it? He says, yeah, I like that. Yeah, you really, you're doing this right. And actually, there's a gathering of these retired African-American CIA officers that they called me on the phone one time and gave me thumbs up. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. So,
that's awesome. Yes. And I noticed that sometimes shows don't get this benefit. And, as a working actor, to hear that a show is coming to an end and know that, obviously you're disappointed. You want to be able to work as long as you want to work. But on the creative side, they've already said that Jack Ryan's going to have 2 more seasons and it wraps.
Right.
So on the creative side, I think that's a great thing because it gives an end game and you don't have this, there are certain, I won't mention shows or networks, but there are certain ones that will drag a show out for way longer than it needs to.
And it jumps the shark. Remember that phrase?
Oh, yeah, jump the shark. Yeah, like Fonzie did. Right?
Fonzie jumped the shark.
Yeah. So do you get thankful for that, or are you just like, I really needed, I would like to keep working on that show as much as possible?
Yeah, both are true. Love to keep working on the show as much as possible and keep it going, because there's all sorts of aspects of character that you want to explore. But at the same time, knowing that it comes to an end, it gives you a perspective to be able to give mark your passing on the road, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We were here. This is what we came to say, and this is what we leave behind. And so it gives you that unique opportunity ahead of time to know how you want to leave your mark and the way you want to leave your mark. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah, well, Wendell, you've left many, many marks on me as a fan and on us. And I'm really looking forward. We'll be there for Death of a Salesman when it comes to Broadway. As New Yorkers, we're excited for it. I'm all in on Jack Ryan, the future seasons. I will hold out hope for eternity that some type of David Simon show with you again returns again.
Okay, I'm going to give you a scoop.
Let's have it.
Well, I guess it's not really a scoop. Some other people may have put it out there.
Maybe
David
let me
Simon.
pretend it's not a scoop.
So it's not a scoop, but it's a reminder.
Okay.
Of a great story about The Wire. I had convinced David Simon to do a Wire movie.
No.
As we were finishing, he said, it's not how, I said, we do a prequel. Mm-hmm. And you see how Stringer Bell and Avon Barksdale took the towers, because from the very beginning of The Wire, they talk about how they took the business over from another family.
That's right. They already had the towers when it started.
Right. When it started, they already had the towers. And so it was going to be about how they took the towers from this other family. And the leader of the other family was going to be Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, so what happened?
Right?
What's going on? I'm in.
And I tell you, right? And David was like, he was a little worried. He's like, oh, I hate when people try to do movies from shows. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, this is totally different. It's, and we did a talk back at the New York Times. And one of the writers, Richard Price, who wrote Clockers, who came on last season or whatever of The Wire. Mm. Great writer, love his books, loves his writing. Says in the middle of this talk back, oh, how special The Wire was, how unique it was. That's why you get all these novelists to come to television, like he and George Pelecanos, because David wasn't so compromising and it wasn't some crass, procedural show. It was really like doing a movie, and it was like doing a novel. He kept saying it was a novel, and that's why I came on. And I tell you right now, if he ever fucking does a movie of this fucking show, I'll kill him. And I was like, you bum! All I had to do was just shut up that one last line. And then David was like, after that, we lost it. We lost David.
Go ahead.
But he did do, because he was thinking about it for the movie, he did do little vignettes to promote the last season. Mm-hmm. And you saw Prop Joe as a little boy in elementary school when he first started hustling, like kids for marbles and their lunch money and all, right? Mm. And they said, what's your name? He said, I'm doing a little proposition here. My name is Joe. And you realize that this kid was Prop Joe. And you see the first time that McNulty and Bunk meet, where I'm like, the grizzled detective that has to, all right, show the greenhorn around. This is how we work in homicide. And cut to moments later where we finished off a bottle of Jameson and we're just rolling on the floor laughing. And you see how we became friends. So he did these little vignettes, and he did one other. And I wonder where they are. I'm sure they must be on the CDs or laser disc or whatever they're going to do behind the scenes, or YouTube somewhere. And those were the little nuggets of ideas that he was thinking about for the movie of The Wire, ruined by Richard Price.
Wendell, thank you again so very much for your time.
Thank
you.
Really,
really appreciate it. Again, you can follow Wendell on Twitter and just be up to date with everything that's coming. Jack Ryan, I know, is coming out this year, but we're going to re-promote that when it comes. And check him out on Broadway for Death of a Salesman. I can't wait for it. And Wendell, thank you so very, very much for your time. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching The Whole. I am Rob Sprans.
And I'm Lori Levine.
Later, motherfuckers.